The true strength of India doesn't lie in its population, its GDP, or its military assets, though all of these are significant in scale. The real, invincible force of India is something far more subtle, yet infinitely more powerful. It is its consciousness. It is the deep-rooted spiritual awareness and resilience that has been cultivated for thousands of years, passed down through generations, silently shaping the character and energy of its people. You see, when a nation functions primarily from external strength, technology, finance, or political systems, it becomes vulnerable when those systems are disrupted. But when a nation is fueled by an internal energy, an unwavering spiritual backbone, it becomes something else entirely, undefeatable. India is not just a country, it is a civilization, a consciousness that predates empires, outlives conquerors, and transcends material success. It is this consciousness that has enabled India to withstand everything the world has thrown at it: colonialism, partition, poverty, invasions, economic sanctions, and even internal chaos. While other nations have crumbled under far less, India continues to rise, not because of what it has, but because of who it is at the core. The power of belief, tradition, and awareness lies in the blood of its people. This isn't philosophy. This is physics at the quantum level. Everything is energy, and India's energy is deeply anchored in ancient knowledge that understands this. Every child born in India grows up hearing stories from the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and other epics not as entertainment, but as life lessons. These stories aren't just religious texts. They are blueprints for strategy, honor, leadership, resilience, and overcoming adversity. The characters represent inner battles, mental challenges, moral dilemmas, and the triumph of spirit over the mind. Western education may teach logic and structure, but India teaches how to master yourself, and that is the greatest education of all. Because if you can master yourself, nothing external can control you. This is why India has never truly been defeated, not in soul, not in identity. Even when the British colonized India, they couldn't break its spirit. India absorbed, adapted, and eventually reclaimed its independence without losing its core. That's not just history, that's an example of energetic persistence, of staying rooted even when the storm hits. Because here's the truth. It is easy to conquer land. It's far harder to conquer consciousness. And India's consciousness is far too vast to be contained or controlled by any foreign ideology. It doesn't just survive, it evolves and expands. Even the Western world, which once looked down on Indian philosophies, is now seeking them. Yoga, mindfulness, Ayurveda, Vedanta, these aren't trends. They are India's gifts to the world, slowly transforming the Western understanding of health, mind, and spirituality. What does this tell you? It tells you that India leads in the unseen. While the West chases material mastery, India builds inner mastery. And inner mastery always wins in the long game, because what's inside creates what's outside. The unseen creates the seen. The mind, the heart, the soul, when these are aligned, they shape destiny. That's the silent power of India. Now, let's talk about the people. The Indian people have an almost unmatched tolerance for adversity. They endure heat, pressure, injustice, chaos, and yet they don't collapse. They bend, but they don't break. Why? Because generations of spiritual grounding have trained the collective Indian mind to see beyond temporary discomfort. Where others see disaster, they see karma. Where others see endings, they see cycles. That mindset is unshakable, and that's exactly what makes them impossible to defeat. Because when you can't break a person's mind, you can't control their future. Look at Indian entrepreneurs, scientists, artists, and thinkers today. Despite lack of resources, corruption, red tape, they still rise. They still create. They still lead. Why? Because their drive doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. It comes from an internal dialogue that says, "You are more than this moment. You are more than this problem. You are born from a land where gods walked, where sages meditated, where kings ruled with wisdom." That's the kind of programming that doesn't just build success, it builds legends. The West operates from a place of external dominance, military, economic, media control. But India, though underestimated, operates from a place of inner dominion. And dominion of the self is the ultimate power. That's why even when the world sees poverty, noise, and struggle in India, they miss the silent revolution happening underneath, a mental awakening, a spiritual renaissance, a resurgence of inner fire that is quietly, steadily transforming the country from within. Not with noise, but with clarity. India's collective soul is hardwired for transformation. Its identity is not static. It is fluid, adaptive, layered, and eternal. Every time it's pushed down, it finds a new way to rise, often stronger and more conscious than before. Because when a country's foundation is built on something deeper than money or military, something eternal, it becomes unstoppable. Too often, people confuse saying yes with being positive, open-minded, or cooperative, but in reality, yes can become a trap. When you say yes to everything and everyone, you begin to disconnect from your own purpose. You begin to betray your intuition. You begin to scatter your focus, your energy, your spirit, and ultimately your destiny. The idea that saying yes to every opportunity, every request, every demand will lead you somewhere meaningful is one of the greatest illusions people live under. True power begins when you learn the discipline of saying no to distractions, to obligations that don't align with your vision, to the people and patterns that no longer support your growth. What most people don't realize is that saying yes is often rooted in fear. Fear of missing out, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of standing alone. So they conform, they submit. They keep accepting roles, ideas, and behaviors that are completely misaligned with who they truly are. This is how you slowly erode your identity, not in one dramatic moment, but in small daily decisions. A yes here, a yes there, until one day you wake up in a life that doesn't feel like yours. You've built someone else's dream. You've walked a path someone else designed, and the longer you keep going, the heavier your soul becomes. The real journey of transformation begins when you pause and ask yourself, what am I actually saying yes to, and why? Are you saying yes because your heart is in it, or because your mind is afraid of what happens if you say no? Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your inner purpose, you're actually saying no to something that does. That's the hidden cost, and that cost accumulates slowly, quietly until your dreams are buried under obligations, distractions, and silent regret. The world is not asking you to be everything to everyone. It's asking you to become fully, unapologetically you. And to become that, you must learn the sacred art of saying no. When you change how you respond to the world, when you stop giving automatic yeses, you start creating space. Space for clarity, space for real intention, space for something greater than just busyness or approval. And in that space, something incredible happens. You begin to hear the whispers of your own soul, the guidance that was always there but drowned out by noise. You begin to reconnect with the truth of your being. You stop chasing and start creating. You stop reacting and start leading. That's how you begin to reshape your destiny. Because here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Your destiny is not written in the stars. It's written in your choices. The small, seemingly insignificant decisions you make every day are the building blocks of your future. Every yes you give away without thinking chips away at your control over that future. But every conscious no you choose when it protects your energy, your vision, your values. That becomes a declaration, a line in the sand, a commitment to your higher self. And in that commitment, you begin to move in a new direction, not just mentally or emotionally, but vibrationally. You start attracting people, opportunities, and paths that resonate with the real you. Saying yes is easy. It keeps the peace. It avoids confrontation. It makes people like you. But none of that matters if you don't like yourself in the process. When you say yes from a place of fear, you weaken your spirit. But when you say no from a place of alignment, you strengthen your soul. This shift isn't just psychological, it's energetic. When you learn to say no to loaf, frequency, emotions, guilt, obligation, fear, you make room for higher frequency states, confidence, joy, clarity, purpose. And the higher your frequency, the more magnetic you become. That's not philosophy, that's physics. Now some people will resist this change. They'll call you selfish, rigid, unavailable. Let them. You are not here to fit their mold. You are here to rise beyond it. You are here to create something extraordinary with your life. And that can only happen when you stop giving your time and energy to things that drain you. Your life force is sacred. You don't owe it to everyone. You owe it to your calling. Start noticing how many times you say yes just to avoid discomfort, to avoid a tough conversation, to avoid disappointing someone, and ask yourself, is this momentary comfort worth my long-term potential? Every yes should be an investment, not an escape. Every yes should bring you closer to your purpose, not pull you further away. Saying no doesn't close doors, it opens the right ones. It signals to the universe that you are no longer available for anything less than what honors your truth. This is how you break free. This is how you stop being a puppet in someone else's play and start becoming the author of your own story. The moment you stop saying yes to everything is the moment you take your power back, because power is not about control over others. It's about control over yourself, over your choices, your focus, your future, and in that control you will find clarity. In that clarity you will find purpose. And in that purpose, you will discover the kind of life that doesn't just impress others, it fulfills you. Negative feelings are often misunderstood, avoided, or labeled as weaknesses. From an early age, we're taught to suppress them, deny them, or distract ourselves from them. We hear phrases like, don't cry, stay strong, get over it, and these seemingly well-meaning words create an emotional framework that tells us pain is something to hide. But that's not how the human mind works. That's not how the soul evolves. Negative feelings are not signs of failure. They're not flaws in your character. They are feedback from your inner world, trying to get your attention, trying to show you where something is out of alignment. They're not there to hurt you. They're there to awaken you. Most people live in reaction to their feelings. They let a moment of fear stop them from speaking up. They let a wave of sadness define their self-worth. They let a hint of anger ruin a relationship. But what if we told you that your feelings are just energy? What if we told you that those uncomfortable emotions are not enemies, but messengers? Because that's what they are. Every feeling you have is trying to communicate something to you. Fear might be showing you where your trust has been broken. Sadness might be revealing a place where healing is needed. Anger might be a signal that a boundary has been crossed. Instead of judging these feelings, we must learn to listen to them. When you begin to look at your emotional landscape with curiosity rather than judgment, everything starts to shift. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and you start asking, "What is this emotion trying to teach me?" That single shift in perspective changes your relationship with yourself. You begin to understand that there is no such thing as a wrong feeling. There are only ignored feelings. And the more you suppress what you feel, the more you delay your own growth. Because what you bury doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes anxiety. It becomes frustration. It becomes disconnection from yourself and the world around you. You see, negative emotions don't block your path. Your resistance to them does. Every time you avoid a feeling, you build a wall inside yourself. A wall between your mind and your heart. A wall between who you are and who you're meant to become. And those walls don't protect you, they imprison you. True strength isn't about avoiding pain. It's about facing it with awareness. Sitting with it, letting it speak, letting it move through you rather than letting it define you, because the feeling itself isn't the problem. The problem is when you believe the feeling is permanent, or when you identify so deeply with it that you forget it's just a temporary state. Your emotions are like the weather, changing, passing, shifting constantly. You don't walk outside on a rainy day and assume the sun is gone forever. In the same way, when you feel lost, overwhelmed, rejected, or defeated, that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're alive. It means your soul is processing something important. And instead of judging yourself for feeling low, what if you could give yourself compassion? What if you could treat your emotional body the same way you would treat a physical wound? With care, with time, with patience. When you stop reacting to negative feelings and start responding to them, you take your power back. You begin to see emotions as tools, not threats. Anger can become fuel for change. Fear can become a compass for courage. Sadness can become a doorway to connection and empathy. Every feeling contains wisdom, but only if you're willing to feel it fully. Not analyze it to death, not numb it with distractions, but feel it. That's the process most people avoid because they've been conditioned to believe that feeling pain is a sign of weakness. In truth, it's the gateway to healing. We live in a world that worships positivity. Smile more, think happy thoughts. Be grateful. And while gratitude and optimism have their place, they are not replacements for emotional honesty. You cannot cover pain with pretty words and expect it to heal. You cannot fake your way to peace. True peace comes from facing the storm, walking through it, and realizing it didn't destroy you, it transformed you. And that transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens moment by moment, breath by breath, when you choose to feel instead of flee. It takes courage to sit in the discomfort of your own feelings, but that courage is the birthplace of every breakthrough. Every time you allow yourself to feel deeply without judgment, you unlock a deeper version of yourself. You begin to reclaim parts of your soul that were buried under years of avoidance, and slowly you become whole again, not by avoiding pain, but by integrating it. By letting it become part of your journey, not your prison. We are emotional beings designed to feel the full spectrum of human experience. To shut down any part of that spectrum is to shut down your own aliveness. When you numb the negative, you also dull the positive. You can't selectively block emotions. If you want to experience deep joy, profound love, and inner freedom, you must also be willing to experience grief, disappointment, and uncertainty, because every emotion you allow yourself to feel expands your capacity to live fully. You are not here to be emotionally perfect. You are here to be emotionally awake. The world often measures a nation's power by its systems, economic infrastructure, technological innovation, political stability, or military capability. The West has long been revered for these strengths: structured, organized, efficient, and strategically powerful. The West has mastered the mechanics of civilization. Its systems are polished, its institutions are long-standing, and its influence historically has been global. But while the West may operate through systems, India operates through something far less visible, yet far more enduring: spirit. And spirit, unlike systems, cannot be colonized, controlled, or replicated. It is not dependent on laws, buildings, or balance sheets. It flows through the culture, through the people, through the land, and it cannot be measured by metrics or rankings. India's resilience lies not in how it functions externally, but in how it sustains itself internally. In the face of colonial rule, invasions, political turmoil, and economic instability, India never lost its essence. It may have been politically conquered, but spiritually it has never bowed. Empires have come and gone, rulers have changed, regimes have risen and fallen, but the spiritual fabric of India has remained untouched. That is what makes India undefeatable. It doesn't rely solely on structures. It relies on consciousness, tradition, and collective memory. It has an identity rooted not in a few centuries of modernity, but in millennia of spiritual practice and philosophical inquiry. Where the West teaches performance, India teaches presence. Where the West emphasizes achievement, India emphasizes awareness. This is not a judgment, but an observation of two very different paradigms. One seeks mastery over the external world, the other seeks mastery over the inner self. And while external systems may make a nation efficient, inner mastery makes it eternal. That is why India continues to thrive even in chaos, because its foundation is not held together by systems alone, but by spirit. Spirit that speaks through its languages, its prayers, its temples, its music, and the silent strength of its people. India has something that most of the world has lost: stillness, not the absence of movement, but the presence of depth. The ability to be in the center of noise and yet be anchored. This is not accidental. It comes from centuries of meditation, mindfulness, and the deeply embedded idea that the inner world creates the outer world. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, they are not just texts. They are consciousness technologies. They offer not just information, but transformation. And while the West has developed machines to change the world, India has developed methods to change the self. Even today, when the world looks at India, it often sees poverty, population, pollution, but those are surface-level observations. What lies beneath is a living current of ancient wisdom, a collective intelligence that understands how to endure, how to regenerate, how to evolve. India's strength is subtle, but it is powerful. It is the strength of devotion, of community, of resilience born from spiritual insight. It is the strength of people who fast not for health but for purity, who wake up before sunrise not for productivity but for prayer, who consider guests not as visitors but as gods. This is not just culture, it is spirit in action. The West has given the world systems of power, but India has given the world systems of consciousness. Yoga is now a global movement, but it was born in Indian soil, not as a fitness regime, but as a path to self-realization. Ayurveda, now studied in elite universities, is not a trend. It is a way of life rooted in harmony with nature. Chanting, meditation, breathwork, these are not borrowed tools. They are India's spiritual exports, slowly redefining health, healing, and human potential around the world. That is how spirit works. It doesn't dominate, it influences. It doesn't control, it transforms. This is why India cannot be defeated. Because you cannot defeat what you cannot define. You can't conquer something that isn't rooted in structure but in soul. You can't outpace something that moves at the speed of evolution, not the speed of economics. India's strength is not fragile, because it does not rely solely on what can be counted, calculated, or contained. It relies on what can be felt, transmitted, and lived, and that makes it a different kind of power altogether. India exists on multiple dimensions at once. It is both ancient and modern, chaotic and ordered, simple and profound. It does not pretend to be perfect. It embraces its contradictions, but within those contradictions lies a unity that is not imposed but experienced, a unity that transcends language, caste, region, and religion. That unity is spirit. It is not seen, but it is known. Not spoken, but felt. Not taught, but remembered. And it's this spirit that makes India not just a country, but a living consciousness that continues to shape the world from within. While the West may lead with innovation, India leads with intuition. While others build walls to protect, India builds temples to connect. While others seek control, India seeks surrender to something higher, deeper, eternal. This isn't weakness. It's strength of the highest form, a strength that doesn't shout but radiates, a strength that doesn't need to conquer because it already belongs. That is why India cannot be replicated, and that is why it cannot be defeated, because its power lies beyond the grasp of systems. It lies in the unshakable, timeless realm of spirit. From the moment you are born, the world begins to shape your identity. Parents, teachers, friends, media, and society all project their expectations, fears, and beliefs onto you. Slowly, often without realizing it, you start to absorb those ideas and internalize them as your own. You're taught what is acceptable, what is possible, what is practical, and over time, that conditioning creates a silent blueprint of limitation. You begin to say yes to things that don't excite you, pursue goals that don't fulfill you, and live in ways that don't reflect your truth. Not because you're weak, but because somewhere along the line, you were never taught that you had a choice, that you were not born to conform, you were born to choose. Choice is the greatest power we have as human beings. The ability to respond rather than react, to decide, not just drift. Every day presents you with countless opportunities to choose how you think, how you feel, how you speak, and how you live. But the problem is, most people give that power away. They wait for permission. They wait for signs. They wait for the right time, the right mood, the right support. They live as though someone else is in charge of their destiny. But the truth is, no one is coming to rescue you, fix you, or push you forward. The key is already in your hand. You just have to decide to use it. You were not born to be average. You were not placed on this earth to merely survive, pay bills, and die quietly. You came here with potential that is unique to you. Talents, ideas, dreams, visions that no one else can replicate. But potential is not power unless it's activated, and activation happens through choice, when you stop living by default and start living by design. When you stop saying yes to fear, laziness, and external noise, and start saying yes to courage, clarity, and conviction. That shift doesn't happen overnight, but it begins with a single decision. A decision to stop living passively and start living intentionally. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you evolve. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you build power. Every time you choose self-belief over self-doubt, you move closer to the life you were meant to live. And it's not about grand gestures. It's about the small, invisible moments when no one is watching. The moment you decide to get up an hour earlier, the moment you say no to a toxic habit, the moment you speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. These are the moments that shape your destiny, not because they're dramatic, but because they're consistent. Choice by choice, you either build your future or delay it. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they forget they have a choice. They believe their circumstances define them. They think their past dictates their future. But none of that is true. Your background may explain your starting point, but it doesn't limit your destination. The difference between those who create extraordinary lives and those who don't isn't luck. It's intention. It's the conscious decision to stop waiting and start creating. It's the ability to say, I will no longer be a victim of my past. I will no longer hand over my future to fear, doubt, or other people's opinions. You can't change what happened yesterday, but you can absolutely change what happens next. And that change begins the moment you realize you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your habits. You are the one who chooses them. You have the power to rewrite the story, to change the script, to create a new outcome by changing your input. This is the essence of freedom, not doing whatever you want whenever you want, but consciously choosing what aligns with your highest purpose. There will be resistance. There will be days when doubt screams louder than belief, days when quitting feels easier than continuing. But those are the moments where your future is forged, because power isn't given, it's earned through alignment. When your choices reflect your purpose, your life becomes magnetic. You start attracting people, situations, and outcomes that resonate with your vision. You move from confusion to clarity, from scarcity to abundance, from fear to freedom, not because the world changes, but because you do. And you do that through choice. You are not here to play small. You are not here to repeat the patterns of the past. You are here to rise, to expand, to create, but none of that happens by accident. It happens by choice. And that choice has to be made over and over again, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one else believes in you yet. Because the moment you commit to your truth, the universe begins to rearrange itself to support you. Doors you never saw begin to open. Strength you didn't know you had begins to rise. And everything changes not because you hoped it would, but because you chose it would.